WNST, Towson, sponsor Howard Bank. I'm not wearing my Howard Bank hat right now because I'm here to support the Philadelphia Eagles for the very first time in my life. Peter King joins us here. I've never rooted for the Eagles. I was a season ticket holder from 86 to 92 during the Kotite Buddy Ryan era. I went up there.
Rich Kotite?
Dude, I was an Oiler guy. You know I was an Oiler guy, right? So,
Rich Kotite.
And this is weird because that's where the Patriots have led us at this point. You know what I mean? You're not a real American unless you're rooting against them, right? I mean, seriously. It's America
but
against
here's
Tom Brady.
The question.
Go ahead.
You're probably right, but here's the question. So, in their heyday, weren't there a lot of people who liked the Pittsburgh Steelers around the country?
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
Okay, all right. Now, in their heyday,
the Cowboys or anybody else, it's good guy, bad guy.
In their heyday, weren't there a lot of people who around the country who liked the Dallas Cowboys? So my whole point is I don't understand why these guys are the evil empire.
They cheated.
Patriots.
They cheated.
And they got penalized twice more than anybody.
I don't like people who cheat. When people cheat you out of money or cheat you at a poker game, or there's no worse feeling to me as a 50-year-old American than to be lied to or cheated, right? And I think everyone has felt that feeling, and I think that there is palpable, over 20 years of being sick of them. Sick of them. Sick of the Belichickian ways, sick of the press conferences and the little Yoda outfits, sick of the gloating, sick
What's
of all
the Yoda
of it.
outfits?
The little hoodie thing that, you know what I'm talking about.
Yoda
I think it's
outfits.
the Emperor.
Did you see this? Honestly, did you see this in Belichick at any point during the Parcells? Because you were around him.
I was there. I covered him for 4 years in the 80s.
You knew a very young Bill Belichick.
Yeah, and Bill Belichick would walk through the locker room. And in those days, there wasn't this. Assistant coaches were not hermetically sealed. You could actually speak to him. Belichick was the greatest, most conversational, cool.
He
not
liked
cool
music
guy.
and stuff too, right?
He's and look, I think what happened to Bill, honestly, is that he got to Cleveland and he had such a shock to his system because they didn't win a lot. And they had 1 year of the playoff game. The greatest thing about Belichick in Cleveland that I always marvel at, he coached with Nick Saban in Cleveland.
Sure.
And their last victory together with Saban as the defensive coordinator and Belichick as the head coach, their last victory together was in Foxborough against the Bill Parcells-led Patriots in a wild card game, like January 3rd, 1995, something like that. But I always have found in my time that if you have Parcells used to call it pelts on the wall. Okay, if you win, you can do whatever you want. You can be as intimidating as you want. You can make your own rules. So Bill Belichick now, this is 8th Super Bowl in New England. They've won 5 of them, and he can do whatever he wants. And that's just the way, in some ways, that's the way America is. If Donald Trump got 82% of the vote in 2020, he would be the grand poobah of our country, and everybody else could go pound sand. And that's just, we're a winner's country where the winner gets to make his own rules.
Well, even if you break the rules to win. Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, but again, you know what? I'll make this point. Let's separate the first one from the second one. Okay, let's separate.
But after the first one, everyone in the league believes the locker room's bugged. Then it becomes to use your Trumpology, the deep state takes over there, and everyone had.
They can believe whatever they want, but is there any evidence? Has anybody ever found? You could say whatever you want that the locker room is bugged. It's nonsense. It's stupid. It's idiotic. It's not true. But
so was a guy in a tree with a camera. That was kind of unbelievable, right?
Well, here's the one thing. I'll make this point. You can make up whatever you want after. And look, the Patriots deserve their share of skepticism on everything. I get it. but you can't necessarily accept skepticism as fact. And that's what has happened now with everybody who watches the NFL. They have accepted the fact that the Patriots are cheating at something. They're doing something wrong right now. And
well, he is 41 and has special sauces that he rubs on his body and special. I mean, it's I don't
special sauce.
Nobody else has ever done this. And the last time we heard of that, it was like Bonds and Clemens and all of these other guys and Lance Armstrong and all. So I think
here's the question.
Some healthy
here's your point. Then here's your point. Okay, Lance Armstrong was proven to cheat. Bonds and Clemens were proven to cheat. Now, if you can find some way now that Brady is cheating, somebody should bring it forward. And if not, then, just sit there and take it. And here's my point about the Brady, what Brady was caught doing, supposedly. Okay? Now, I did this in 2006. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning led a movement among quarterbacks in the NFL. And that movement basically said we want footballs to be able to be worked on before games so that it doesn't feel like you're throwing an ice cube when it comes right out of the box. Okay, it's not all slippery. And so they were able to do that. So from 2006 to 2015, when Brady was, quote, caught, end quote, in that period of time, Tom Brady, because you're supposed to now be able to fool around with the balls and get them exactly to your liking, okay, no matter where you play. But when you're home, your own ball boy takes the balls. When you're on the road, once you arrive at the stadium, you have no control over the footballs. They're in the hands of the officials and in the local ball boys. You can't have your own ball boy at a road game. So 2 hours and 15 minutes before every game, the Patriots have to hand 24 footballs to Gene Sterator's crew or whoever's doing the game, and they take control of the balls. So road games are far different than home games because home games, you could figure out some system probably to fool around with the footballs.
If you were nefarious.
But here's the point I was going to make, okay? In between 2006 and 2015, Tom Brady had the exact same touchdown to interception ratio, plus 91, in home games as he did in road games. His quarterback rating was like 100.1 at home and 99.7 on the road. He was the exact same quarterback. All I'm saying is this. If he's fooling around with the footballs at home, it's not mattering in any way. It isn't. So everybody says, see, you cheated. You got this huge advantage. He got zero advantage. He got zero advantage.
If I go to SeatGeek, do I get an advantage for knowing Peter King?
Yeah, you use the promo code KING when you go to SeatGeek and you get a ticket. You get a ticket to the Super Bowl. You know what you'll get? You use the promo code KING. You get $20 off. So then the Super Bowl ticket is only going to be $19 million minus 20.
And that's just for Eagles fans. That's just for Eagles fans. Peter King joining us here from the MMQB and, of course, Sports Illustrated. All right, let's take this thing to the Ravens, all right? So we got a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 4 out of 5 years, hasn't made the playoffs in 3 years. There was some thought that maybe John would be in trouble or Ozzie be moving on or Steve would make changes. It's been a month. They've had their powwow down in Florida. Steve now announces with 30,000 empty seats for a season in ours. I mean, the real problem in our team is not just on the field. The problem is we get a lot of pissed off fans about the knee. A lot. I mean, everywhere. I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen anything like 25, 30,000 empty seats in our stadium for the Colts coming to town Christmas week for a potential play and get into the playoffs. It was a mess. So Steve now addresses the media at 1:30 on a Friday afternoon on Super Bowl weekend.
The day before Ray Lewis.
The day before Ray, you're going to vote Ray Lewis into the Hall of Fame, which is the other part of this. Some thoughts about where the Ravens are right now, where Steve Bisciotti is, because I'm worried about the franchise and the fans and this 22-year honeymoon where they never had to sell a ticket. They got to sell tickets now. And this is a weird spot for this franchise to not be winning, to have really angry fans. And I don't know that Steve's going to say anything that's going to fix this. And I don't know that they're going to do anything in the offseason to make it be perceived that they can win 12 or 13 games next year.
You know what this team reminds me of right now? This team reminds me of the Giants around 2011, 12, 13, okay? In other words, you have some dry years, but every year you go to training camp and say, we have the ability not only to win our division but to make a playoff run. And so I might be naive in this, Nestor, but I think if this team gets rolling, and look, it's different than Green Bay. You're absolutely right. Because in Green Bay, people are coming to the game no matter what. And people might be angry about the take a knee thing in Green Bay, but it's not going to stop them from going to the game. I think the knee thing and the protest thing is really, really interesting from a bunch of standpoints. And I think for some people, and I'm not saying this is true in Baltimore, but I think for some people it has become the wrong word is excuse. It has become another reason to not go to the games. And I think part of this, honestly, is that if you're not winning every Sunday, there's a lot of people in inclement weather who are going to say, you know what, sometimes it's kind of a pain in the rear end to go to these games. I got a great TV at home.
I flew to Cleveland the first week of December to watch an 0-13 team play, and I wondered why anyone would come to downtown Cleveland on a Sunday, like that anyone would show up.
Well,
let alone that 20,000 still really did show up.
They're crazy, and in a good way. And I think the people in Cleveland are just really, really happy to have a team. And it's a different way. Cleveland is just a different place.
Well, we were really, really happy to have a team the day I met you in Parking Lot D when Glendenning's there holding up the Browns mug. And for 22 years, they've never had to think about selling a ticket or think about what if the fans don't love us, right? And
so now here's my question about Baltimore. I mean this seriously because I don't know the answer to it. So what happens in 2018 if the Ravens go 12-4? They got some exciting young rookie. They got Saquon Barkley, or I don't know. They got
a wide receiver of some kind.
They have
an offense,
and Flacco comes back and all that stuff, and they're a good team and they win their division. Because I want to know this: are there going to be holdouts who are going to say, "Darn you," because of the kneeling thing?
I think the holdout comes, we have PSLs tied to this in Baltimore, so it's a whole different thing of if you don't renew your tickets, you forfeit a license you paid $1,500, $2,000 for 10, 15, 20 years ago. The problem comes when the season ticket renewals come and you get your bill and it's $2,800 or it's $3,500. In my case, it's $1,700. Do you write that check 6 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now, or do you not? And I think that's the civic question, and I think that's what Steve's going to need to address on Friday. And beyond all of that, everyone in the building says the same thing. We just need to win. If we don't win, they're not going to come, but we need to win. And I'm thinking, you came a 4th and 12 away from playing a playoff game. I mean, you could have a little bit of a better season this year, but you can't do much better than one play away from making the playoffs. That's a pretty good position for any team.
It's pretty good, but you know and I know that the Ravens were a marginal playoff team anyway,
fair enough.
at best.
And that's been their MO for most of the last 5 years. 2014.
Let's try to win 10 games and sneak in. Right.
But the reason why I say they remind me of the Giants is that did anybody think in 2011 that the New York Giants were going to win 3 in a row on the road and the Giants were going to beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl? No, nobody thought that. Same thing as in 2007 where they went on a roll on the road. The Ravens are such an interesting team because Joe Flacco is one of these I don't give a crap guy. I'll play you in Siberia. He doesn't care. He's just not an emotional guy in that way. That's one of the reasons why if I'm Harbaugh, if I'm Ozzie, if I'm Bisciotti, I'm saying to myself, I still like this guy as our quarterback because he's totally ice cold. He's not going to let any of the other stuff get to him. I guess, Nestor, I would just say this. It's an interesting situation, and probably Baltimore is the most interesting place right now for 2018 and sort of the petri dish that is the the experiment of whether people are going to go to games regardless.
Love you, Peter King. He is the MMQB. He is here on behalf of SeatGeek. He is here to save all Eagles fans $20. If you really like them, you give them 25. I mean,
I will personally give them 25. No, I won't. No, but I really appreciate it, Nestor. It's been great having the relationship with you over the years. You know what we got to do? We need to go to a Birds game, and we need to watch Manny Machado play shortstop.
Well, he's still there.
You need to meet me in Missoula, Montana in August to go see Pearl Jam. That's what you need to do.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. I don't care about Pearl Jam. But you know what?
Guy.
I will say this. Pat Shurmur.
Okay.
You know what he does?
What does he do?
He goes to U2.
He's a U2 guy.
Yeah, he's a U2 guy.
See, I don't know Pat, but I know John.
If
I know
either,
John,
yeah.
you know Pat.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of, right?
Yeah.
Peter King, the MMQB, joining us here on Radio Row. All of our Radio Row coverage, of course, brought to you by our friends at Howard Bank. And they're signed on with us, the featured official sponsor of WNST here on Radio Row. Also, Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast, back with us with the fried chicken. They got a lot of things here at the Mall of America in Minnesota. They do not have Royal Farms fried chicken here, which bums me out a little bit. Pizza John's down in Essex, spinning it. My wife had the leftover Pizza John's and was taunting me on Sunday night. They do not have Pizza John's at the Mall of America either. And, of course, our friends at the Maryland Jockey Club appreciate their support here this year as we get ready for Preakness and get ready for the rest of the winter meet down at Laurel. I'm going to call it Laurel just to be nice to Charlie Ekman. Luke, anything you want to throw in here? Because I feel bad that you're not getting more words in edgewise.
Well,
I'm
you
nuts.
and Peter are old friends, so I
could talk to Peter all night.
Well, I thought it was interesting what he had to say at the end of the conversation about Joe Flacco specifically. And, we've talked a lot about him. We'll continue to talk a lot about him, and opinions vary. You have some people in town.
I'm a Joe guy. I'm a Joe guy.
But we know you have some people in town who want to blame him for everything. And then there are some who don't want to blame him for anything. The truth is somewhere in the middle. He needs to play better. I've said that on a number of occasions over the last few years. But that said, what Peter just brought up, and I agree with him, he's still someone who has the track record of what he did 5 years ago, what he did prior to that, what he did in the first 3 weeks of December this past season with a complete motley crew of just who's who at wide receiver.
Griff Whalen.
Well, I mean, but
he'll always be my Spurgeon win.
It's great to say that, then build around him. And that's what I've continued to say. I will continue to say that until we see the Ravens have a number one receiver or at least make more of an attempt. You cannot expect this guy to go out there and play a lot better how people want him to play when you see what's around him. It just doesn't work. Jeremy Maclin was terrible this year. He was hurt, but
Brashad Perriman's been terrible from the beginning.
When Mike Wallace is your one established NFL wide receiver out there in Week 17 when your season's on the line, that's not good enough. I love Mike Wallace. He's a solid number 2 receiver, and you know what his limitations are. So, again, have they had some bad luck in there? Sure. But have they committed to the offensive side of the ball nearly enough? Absolutely not. The proof is in the cap. Look at the cap resources allocated for the offense versus the defense, even with Flacco's cap number, which everyone wants to talk about.
We've always been lopsided on that,
defense,
though, right?
The defense, more of the cap is devoted to the defense. We've talked about the draft picks. At some point in time, you can keep trying to rebuild the 2000 Ravens, and that's well and good, but that's an outlier. That's not the formula to win a Super Bowl is not to just try to build a historic defense, because it's very difficult to do that. To me, it makes more sense to say, hey, let's have a good defense, certainly. We're not saying to ignore that, but this guy won you a Super Bowl 5 years ago when he had good pieces around him. He didn't have all pros at every position, but he did have Anquan Bolden, who was way better than any receiver they've had since then, with apologies and respect to Steve Smith. They did have Ray Rice, who might have been at the end of his absolute prime at that point, but was still very much a difference maker.
But also that offensive line. I mean, Matt Burke's going to the Hall of Very good at the least. Bryant McKinney was the number 1 pick.
And remember, that
Michael
offensive
Orr,
line did not
Yanda.
fully gel until the postseason when they made the
Think about
change.
that line. Yanda, Burke, McKinney, Orr. I mean,
absolutely.
Those are all serious football players.
No question about it.
Yeah.
No question. So, again, we just come back to this. You can be a Flacco hater and say he needs to be better and he stinks and he had one of the worst statistical seasons in the NFL among starting quarterbacks. And there's truth to that. He does need to play better, but I still look at the talent around him. I look at Marty Morningwig, who I'm not a big believer in. I'm not a big fan of in terms of being as cutting edge as you'd like coaching to be if your talent isn't quite up to par compared to other teams. And I just see the sum of the parts doesn't add up. So I would much rather see the Ravens, and people have already started talking about the possibility of them taking a quarterback. And look, I think they absolutely should be looking for a quarterback early on day 3. I think that makes sense. Joe is 33 years old. Joe has had some injuries here in recent years to think that, you know what, as durable as he was.
Well, Nick Foles is over my shoulder here.
Sure.
He's playing on Sunday.
No doubt.
Right?
And I think we saw in the preseason, I thought it was very clear, Ryan Mallett's not a tenable backup quarterback.
But it's always this cautionary tale that if you lose your starting quarterback, you can't go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Boy, unless you're Jeff Hostetler, and we've talked about that for 30 years. And now here's the next example.
Right.
And I don't know if he's going to win or not.
And let's keep in mind, they were
as you sit here in the middle of the week making a case that Nick Foles is going to beat Tom Brady in a Super Bowl, it takes a leap of faith to do that.
Oh, no question. And let's keep in mind, give Nick Foles a lot of credit for how he played in the second half of the Atlanta game, and he was terrific against Minnesota. But he was put into a position. I mean, Carson Wentz didn't get hurt in week 4. They were already on track to be the number 1 seed, and he didn't have to do a whole lot at the end of the regular season.
They wouldn't be here if it was 16 weeks in there.
Right. But getting back to my point about Flacco and with the Ravens and where they should be at the quarterback position, to me, 4th round would be where I'm looking to see if I find the next Dak Prescott, the next Russell Wilson, that kind of guy. And that's not to say that it's someone who's going to take Joe's job this coming season, but someone who is an upgrade over Ryan Mallett. That's how I would go into this thinking I want to improve my backup quarterback situation.
We saw a lot of Ryan Mallett to realize, wow.
We saw a lot to not like.
Yeah.
And frankly, that was kind of known about him before he got to Baltimore, so I don't think anything's changed there. But with Joe being...
Well, they did sign on for another year of him.
Right.
And he did beat Pittsburgh a couple years ago. I mean, he did.
He did. But I want to see more of a commitment to building an offense around Joe Flacco. And you know what? If they do that, and Joe's still last in the NFL among qualified quarterbacks in yards per attempt, and still isn't throwing for 25 touchdowns, and you go through all the numbers you want to go through, and it's still not up to par, maybe then you have your answer that it's time to start looking towards the future and your next quarterback. But I'm not quite there yet. I want to see them at least make a real attempt to put some better pieces around him, and then let's see what Joe Flacco is in 2018.
Steve Bisciotti's press conference is Friday at 1:30. You'll find that out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. All of our work here this week will be in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. We are on Radio Row, which literally is here in a mall. We're at the Mall of America in Minnesota. I'm trying to figure out whether to wear the long johns or not, go with it, without it. Peter King whipped out his Vaseline for lips. There is a dry hand, eye, lip, nose, skin factor going on here that is, my wife's coming in the middle of the week. Bring lotion. That's what I would say here. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Freedmont Mortgage. If you're buying, selling a house this year in the market, thinking about it, want to refinance, go to Freedmont.com and learn more about what Carl Delmont and our friends do at Freedmont Mortgage. All of our programming this week brought to you by Howard Bank. They are the presenting sponsor for all Super Bowl 52 coverage. And, of course, Ray Lewis going into the Hall of Fame this weekend, we think on Saturday night. The road trips are $50 off all week long to Canton, Ohio. If you want to join us on the trip, Indians, Pirates. I should have seen Peter King wanted to go on that trip. He'll be camping at that point, though. He'll be on his 6th training camp by the time they go to the Hall of Fame.
True.
Right? Yeah.
True.
Training camp's open in July.
I don't know if he covers the Hall of Fame induction. I mean,
he does.
Does he?
He's always there.
Does he come in for that?
But there's 150 players in the room.
He's in the room when they're.
Can we get
deciding?
Peter King back here to talk more Hall of Fame? Paging Peter King. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat. We are streaming live on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. There is a variety of light and shade here. Feels like I'm in the Metrodome, quite frankly, but I am warm,
the Metrodome,
dude. And there are there's coffee. There are tavern cheeseburgers and French fries and crinkle cut and pizza. We're in the food court, literally here, so we're not going to starve. Although it is going to be a little hectic with Eagles fans around here, probably screaming things that my FCC license holders won't like. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.